Dear friends, have you ever noticed that you are meeting less and less friends, attending fewer parties, or are not as enthusiastic about small talk as you used to be? Have you ever found yourself wanting to be alone more and more, living more slowly, and being more selective in your relationships? If the answer is yes, then I want to tell you one thing: you are not strange, nor is there anything wrong with you. On the contrary, you are on the right track, the path of inner growth. Today, I want to share with you 6 profound psychological reasons why we tend to avoid people as we age, and why it is not only normal, but something to be cherished. First, as we age, we no longer have as much time and energy as we used to. As we enter the more mature stages of life, one of the most obvious changes is not in our appearance, but in how we spend our time and energy. Young people are often full of enthusiasm, ready to rush into new meetings, relationships, and experiences that sometimes we don't even understand the purpose of. But as we get older, time becomes a precious asset that we cannot spend carelessly. Energy becomes limited, and we are forced to be more conscious in choosing where to put our hearts. The more we mature, the more we realize that not all the things that keep us busy are worth pursuing. Surface social relationships, conversations that are just to fill the void, innocuous inquiries, all gradually become empty. They are no longer convincing enough for us to spend time on them as before. Not because we become distant or cold, but because we begin to understand that our presence is a valuable gift. Not everyone deserves it. We begin to filter what we keep. Deep relationships, friends who truly understand and support each other, those are the things worth preserving. No longer chasing quantity, but looking for quality. No longer trying to please everyone, but learning to be true to ourselves. It is not an easy process, because it means accepting to let go of things that were once a familiar part of us. But thanks to that, we live more lightly, more deeply, and more meaningfully. Selection is not rejection, but a form of appreciation. Appreciation for ourselves, and for the connections that are truly valuable in our lives. When we no longer have the luxury of emotional dispersion, we can truly appreciate peace and sincerity. And that is the most precious gift that time gives to those who have experienced enough. Second, life values change. Life values, over time, constantly change. If in the beginning, we craved to connect with the whole world, to be known, to be recognized, to be part of a large crowd, then as we grow older, we become more withdrawn. The desire to spread gradually gives way to the need to withdraw, no longer wanting to make friends everywhere, but only wanting to keep around us a few people who truly understand us. No need for many words, no need to show off, just need to be there at the right time and be present sincerely. That is not a manifestation of isolation or indifference, but a process of inner purification. The longer we live, the more we realize that noisy but empty conversations leave nothing but a feeling of exhaustion. A nod full of understanding, a moment of silence but in harmony, can heal more than 1,000 words. We stop chasing relationships that appear flashy on the surface and learn to listen to the vibrations within, where true connections are often quiet and deep. Depth becomes the new criterion of attachment. We begin to realize that the value of a conversation is not in its length or frequency, but in the feeling of being ourselves when talking to someone. There is no longer a need for constant status updates, no need for small talk to be polite. Instead, it is a sincere presence, the ability to be silent together and still feel full and secure. Being together without having to force ourselves. Talking less, but understanding each other more. We cherish the feeling of being together, not being absorbed in searching for excitement. Perhaps, that is one of the clearest signs of maturity, when simple things begin to have great meaning. And when silence is no longer a void to be filled, but a safe space to be ourselves. Third, we understand ourselves better. The more mature we become, the more we understand ourselves, an understanding that does not come from books or advice, but is drawn from our own struggles, from the times we tried to please others and then found ourselves lost. When we were young, we lived with a strong desire to be accepted. We learned to observe others to adjust ourselves, trying to integrate into the group, sometimes losing our own voice just to gain recognition. We thought that pleasing everyone was the right thing to do, a sign of maturity and kindness. But at some point, When our emotions have become numb after too many times of forcing ourselves, we begin to ask ourselves, who am I living for? And then, very naturally, we return to ourselves. The older we get, the more we listen to ourselves, the things that make our hearts flutter, the things that make us feel tired and exhausted. That understanding is not a loud declaration, but a quiet but profound awakening. We no longer need anyone to define our value. No longer easily swayed by looks or judgments. No longer afraid of being called different when daring to live true to our own nature. And from there, we learn to say no, firmly, gently but consciously. Refusing what is not suitable is not a selfish act, but a form of healthy self-protection. Because we know that if we keep trying to embrace things that are not meant for us, we will eventually be the ones to drop ourselves first. That limit is not to close, but to preserve. No one can make us feel guilty for setting boundaries. No longer guilty about prioritizing our own feelings. Because we understand that, only when we are true to ourselves, can we be fully present in the lives of others, not as a tired copy, but as a full and sincere person. Fourth, we are more aware of impermanence. The more we go through the ups and downs of life, the more we realize the impermanence, that nothing lasts forever, no one can hold on to anything completely. There are things that seem eternal, but can disappear in a moment. There are people that we thought would accompany us forever, but one day they will become memories. Impermanence is no longer an abstract concept, but becomes a life experience, painful, poignant, and very real. From that realization, we stop. No longer racing against time, no longer rushing to pursue frivolous things. We slow down, not because of a lack of goals, but because we understand that nothing is more precious than being fully present. We stop trying to be everywhere, stop straining ourselves to prove something to the world. Because we know, the world doesn't care much about the things we think are important. What really matters, the people we love, the moments we truly live, are often overlooked by us in our meaningless busy days. That slowness does not mean procrastination, but a conscious choice, to live deeply, to live truly, to live wholeheartedly. We no longer need applause from strangers, we don't need frivolous halos, we just need the peace of sitting next to someone we love, the satisfaction of silently watching the sun rise through the window, or the warmth of hearing the laughter of our loved ones. Those simple things, we used to miss out on because we were busy looking for some great meaning. Now, they are the things that make our lives worth living. When we clearly realize that time waits for no one, we stop postponing love, stop postponing happiness. We don't let apologies or hugs be kept until tomorrow. We love and live as if today is our last chance, not because we are pessimistic, but because we understand, the most precious thing is not a bright future, but the present moment, where we can still live, love, and be ourselves. Fifth, we no longer need recognition from the outside. When we were young, we lived in the hope of being recognized. Compliments, admiring looks from others became the measure of our own worth. A compliment can make us feel proud and confident in ourselves, while a criticism can make us lose sleep, question everything we have done, and make us feel that we are not good enough. We are used to seeking validation from outside, from those around us, as if our self-worth depends on the views of others. But over time, through challenges, failures, and losses, we gradually realize something profound: external recognition is just a passing wind, not sustainable and easily changed. Every compliment can be replaced by criticism. Every recognition can fade in the face of new demands from society or from ourselves. And when we depend too much on the recognition of others, we easily lose ourselves in those waves of change. That is why we begin to turn inward. We realize that peace does not come from compliments or looks from others, but from accepting and loving ourselves. When we understand that no one can fully understand or appreciate our worth, we stop looking for validation from the outside. We begin to learn to be true to ourselves, without having to prove anything to the world. Peace now comes from knowing who we are, what we need, and what we deserve, not because others say so, but because we feel it ourselves. When we understand that this peace is our own, we no longer crave to stand out or appear everywhere. We no longer need the spotlight or praise. What we need is silence, space to be ourselves without having to force ourselves, without having to play a role other than our true nature. We no longer fear missing out or being alone, because we have found comfort in being fully present in the small moments, with the people we love and appreciate. This transformation is not just a change in perception, but a process of finding ourselves again, so that we no longer feel like we have to do something to prove our worth. That is true freedom, freedom from judgment, from pressure from others, and the freedom to live a meaningful life without having to chase recognition. Peace is no longer something beyond our reach, but a state within us, a place that no one can invade, as long as we know how to live true to ourselves. And finally, biological change is undeniable. Biological change over time is undeniable. When we are young, our bodies are full of energy, easily accepting fun, noisy crowds, and participating in the relentless rhythm of the world around us. Long sleepless nights, endless meetings, aimless trips, all are an inevitable part of youth, a way for us to assert ourselves and connect with the world. We are not tired, do not feel uncomfortable, and every moment is filled with excitement. However, as time passes, our bodies begin to show signs of change. Our stamina is no longer what it used to be, fatigue creeps into every corner of our body and mind. Long sleepless nights are no longer easy, endless fun suddenly becomes heavy. Although we can still participate in those activities, the feeling of under the lights is no longer as attractive as before. The hustle and bustle, the loud laughter, no longer seem to make us feel alive, but only to be a distraction, a gradual exhaustion. Instead, a new need begins to appear, the need to find silence, peace in our own space. We no longer fit in with the crowd as before. The noisy, bustling world no longer seems to be the place for us to return to after long days. Instead of participating in parties that last until late at night, we find joy in quieter moments. A good book, a hot cup of tea, or simply sitting quietly alone are things we love and cherish. That space, although seemingly quiet, not noisy, is full, complete, and peaceful. It is not loneliness, nor is it boredom. It is a conscious choice to slow down, to not be caught up in society's demands and expectations of what we should do. It is an act of self-care, of protecting oneself from the noise and chaos of the outside world. We find joy in silence, in a space without hustle and bustle, in moments when we can be true to ourselves without having to play any role. This silence is a form of living in harmony with ourselves. When the body is tired and the mind needs peace, we no longer feel deprived or inferior when refusing outside pleasures. In fact, we have found another kind of happiness, a happiness that does not need the hustle and bustle, does not need the applause of the crowd, but is the peace that comes from within. The feeling of peace is not a cold silence, but a state of fullness, completeness, when we are ourselves and do not have to run after anyone or anything. Ladies and gentlemen, psychologists call this process selective narrowing, a manifestation of wisdom. We don't shrink back because we're weak, but because we've learned to be selective about what's worth entering our lives. So if one day you find yourself not wanting to go out much, not wanting to socialize too widely, not interested in being liked anymore, smile. You're not staying away from people in a negative way. You're getting closer to yourself. And sometimes, getting closer to yourself is the most important journey any of us must go through to truly understand what peace is. Thank you for listening. Don't forget to like and subscribe so we can continue sharing helpful advice together. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.